There is a meeting set with Xi and Trump on May 14th in China.
After the leader of the KMT met with Xi.
The leader of the KMT met with Xi. We'll come back to that because that is important. In this meeting in May, it coincided with Kim Jong Un's travel to China. And in my assessment, I might be completely wrong on this, and I'll take the liberty of it. There is an upcoming deal next month with North Korea, and Trump is gonna use that card like, yo, I got the
nuclear
Iran
deal.
Just a cessation of hostilities and the nuclear deal. I don't think so. I don't think I think that's out of the picture altogether.
Yeah.
But I think I think the plan right now is Iran's deal. Okay, I'm gonna frame myself as a peacemaker and then do the same thing with North Korea, and that's the end of it. The midterms are around the corner. Epstein stuff is gone by the wind now. I don't think many people are fixated on that at the moment.
Like you said, the memory is just 1 week cycles.
The Melania Trump stuff that happened like 2 days ago.
What happened 2 days ago?
2 days ago, she went in front of the cameras and she was like, I have no connection. I personally, she said nothing about Donald Trump. She was like, I personally have no connections with him. We just happen to be in the same social circles for
She called a press conference just to say, hey, I have no association to Epstein. Okay, thank you, bye.
Yes. She didn't tell anybody that she was gonna do this press conference at all. The president didn't know. JD Vance didn't know. Like no advisors knew. She just called the press conference. Everyone pulled up and she's like, "Yo guys, I have nothing.
I have nothing to do with it."
But she specifically went. Yeah, she specifically specified herself and herself only. She didn't say, "Oh, me and my husband." No, she said.
Well, was there something that came out that indicted her before that? That this was in response. That press conference was in response to. She felt like she had to clear something up real quick.
I mean, like,
was there a leak, an Epstein leak or something right before that with her name in it or something
really,
like that?
But I do know that one of her I think it's one of her friends either got deported and she got pissed about that somehow or it was some fishy happened to one of her friends right before she did that interview.
And I think that kind of stuff reinforces a lot of people thinking Trump is a complete idiot. I don't think so. And we've talked about this before, it's hard to pick. It's hard to really. Is this guy beholden to Israel? Is he cucked to Israel? Is he completely a compromised asset? Until you realize, and this kind of speaks to maybe his own normalcy to an extent, or his own I guess whatever he's thinking, or the solvency of the state's plans. And interesting that you have to go back to 1970, 1971, and also to Pakistan when Kissinger went to Pakistan. And from there, back channeled and went to meet Mao. And that led to Nixon meeting Mao. What did they discuss? They discussed the trilateral system. And what is a trilateral system? What is being implemented today by Trump? And we talked about this. Trumpian diplomacy very much mirrors Nixon's plan and the Mao plan for the future, which really was, hey, we are all relegated to our specific zones of influence. You're hearing this with Hegseth when he said we are the net security provider from Greenland to Alaska.
Yeah.
This is the crystallization of the trilateral agreement, and that is that the entire Western Hemisphere remains the U.S.'s domain. Europe is up for grabs, and we don't have anything to do with it.
Germany, Russia, whoever wants to take it.
And you'll see France and Russia butting heads over the next few years. With Germany, Biden broke their back, and Britain broke their own. So we're going to see the next 20, 30 years, maybe a little too much. History's moving faster right now. Maybe the next decade will be the French and Russians competing over Europe. And the trilateral program really relegated China to the Pacific Rim and Pakistan to compete with India and Russia as the natural allies just geographically, and then the beginning of their revolutionary states, or in India's case, their neo-colonial state.
Yeah.
What does this arrangement mean for the geopolitics of Africa? As in, Africa's been at the mercy of pretty much every empire that comes to it, like the Americans, the Europeans, or even the Russians or the Chinese.
Yeah.
How does this trilateral agreement affect their geopolitics? Or does this help them break out of their chains, or is this just a new master?
I mean, I think this is helpful for the African countries. The past few years, you've been seeing them on the road to more and more decoupling from the West, and the ability to diversify who they get down with. Russia as a security guarantor, China for infrastructure and development, Belt and Road extension. So when you look at for the biggest examples are Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, these countries that have had these coups that have kicked out the French who were colonizing them. They're no longer under the grip of the French currency. Their resources are not sold out to the French, and by extension, the Americans have kind of had to take a backseat on that.
American corporations have
Yeah.
been completely appalled by the situation in Burkina Faso, because
Yeah.
wait, we were mining anything and everything that
Right.
we wanted to up until
Right.
I mean, this is a while back now. What? How many? It has been a year.
It's been more than a year.
Okay,
been more than a year.
Well,
It's been a
let's say
few
2
years.
years ago, they were
Yeah.
mining anything and everything under the sun.
Yeah.
And no one could say anything to them.
Yeah.
And within like the course of a year, it's been wrapped.
Yeah.
They're no longer allowed to do anything.
Well,
in the country.
so now with the U.S. consolidating its hold over the Western Hemisphere, all the minerals that they want to sap from any other country, they have plenty of that in Latin America. So these countries in Africa will probably get to take a bit of a breather because the U.S. can't just, it would be an overextension.
And Europe's obviously in crisis.
Europe is in crisis right now. All it takes is for more coups and revolutions to happen, like Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, to kick out the.
They can barely handle.
They can barely hold it down. Yeah.
They can barely handle all the migrants that have moved
Yeah.
in the past 10 years.
Yeah. So it would be, if they want that to stop, it would be in their best interest to let Africa develop.
Interesting. UAE obviously got it.
The UAE is cooked, right? I got such a kick out of the fact that when Iran started
I feel like
pummeling the UAE, the RSF in Sudan, their supply chain got screwed. And the Sudanese military got to take more territory. The Sudanese military was being supplied with drones by Iran in the past anyway. Iran supported the Sudanese military in the Sudanese military RSF conflict. And so you see how that kind of almost, I don't like using the term proxy war because it's so abused, but you see how like the indirect effect of that on the Sudanese civil war also was good. For the side that Iran and Pakistan, and I mean the better side of the two,
do you
we're supporting.
See, Israel taking a stance in the exploitation of Africa?
So they've been trying to consolidate along with the UAE, and so Israel and the UAE have been buddies in trying to do this with Somaliland.
Yeah,
and
Somaliland was like the first example.
yeah.
I mean, but
Yeah.
that's a really obvious example because
Yeah.
it's such a, for them it's like they're just opposite of the
Right.
Houthis on the other side.
Right.
Trying to control
Right.
Bab el-Mandeb or whatever the name of that strait is.
Bab el-Mandeb, yeah.
I mean, that's like the most obvious one.
Right.
There's so many resources in Africa to be taken. Taken.
It's going to be tougher. It's going to be tougher for the Israelis now because I think a lot of the African countries themselves are seeing this whole multipolar thing, and they know that Israel is not, for whatever they're going to offer them, tech or whatever. That's not the basket you want to put your eggs in right now.
I think you're
The
seeing this
UAE,
pivot.
Israel.
You're seeing the pivot across the board. You're seeing this with, you saw this, you pointed out the KMT. KMT, the opposition leader of Taiwan, of the Nationalist Party, visiting Xi, meeting face to face, historic moment.
Now, the KMT, just for audience sake, the Communist Party of China versus the KMT was like the battle that Mao won, which made China communist, kicking the KMT out, relegating them to Taiwan.
Yeah.
So that's why this meeting now is so whoa.
And then you saw simultaneously leaders of South Korea becoming
Pissed off at Israel.
pissed off at. I think the pissed off at Israel part. I think they're really seeing that they put their eggs in a basket with the U.S. and the U.S. has backed away. They've
Yeah.
removed their missile systems from from South Korea. They've, I guess you could say, if you look at a map or in like a chess game sort of thing, China's really pushed the theater of war away from the Pacific, away from the Persian Gulf even, and more towards the Mediterranean. Today, the theater of war resides in Lebanon, in Syria, not really Syria anymore, in that area. It's interesting because we talked about the Muslim NATO emerging, Muslim NATO-like force emerging with this disbursement of arms across the region, across Muslim governments. Saudi and Turkey. These are the interesting players in this because Turkey now is faced with the Israeli threat more than anyone else.
Yeah.
And with Saudi, I think they've acted proactively and they've moved away from the Iranian issue. They have tackled UAE type of Salafism. And that was also obvious when the UAE tried to bribe Ansarullah in Yemen to attack Saudi. And
Yeah.
Ansarullah said no. And then the people who agreed, Saudi wiped them out. But that made sense that there is some kind of symmetry here. And right now, it's really looking like Saudi has, and Mohammed bin Salman, he's not your grandfather, Saudi. Say what you want about him. The guy, he could be 1,000 bad things.
He's a prick, but he has a vision, and I think he's starting to kind of understand what the future of Saudi in the region is going to be. We were talking about this earlier. You brought up that he was a gamer, right? And it makes you remember the fact that MBS is a millennial, and when he became the crown prince, he doesn't want his country to be some like Wahhabi pariah state. When right next door, the UAE is where rich people are partying and investing and all of that. And now he's in a position to kind of consolidate.
It's a Western
Saudi.
mind.
Yeah, he is a Western mind. He's a millennial. He's not
King
he's not a
Fahd.
Wahhabi. He's not. Yeah.
He's not King Salman.
Yeah.
He is. The Khashoggi killing was something that put him on the map as an extremist. But we have to remember Khashoggi himself was an agent.
Khashoggi was a prick too.
And I think if you read Mohammed bin Salman's first book, and we talked about this many times, his first pages, the first thing he says is, "I want McKinsey." And these guys are really, and we know McKinsey, the firm is embedded, consulting firm that's embedded in everything that is bad in the world. And he managed to hire them, and it shows the modernization of their whole strategy domestically and externally. He winded down the Yemen war. And I feel like now he realizes that the Greater Israel Project is not going to take prisoners. You're going to be victim to it whether you like it or not. And I think that's a big issue for Saudi. They've managed to negate it. For Egypt, well, they are the biggest beneficiary of U.S. military aid. So that's a little easier to deal with.
Yeah.
Turkey is in no position to navigate its interests in Lebanon. It is the lifeline of Russia into that region. Russia has its only, in my belief, the only deep water port. Only warm water
port. Yeah.
Only warm water port in the world resides in Syria, I believe.
So Russia.
Which one is it?
I thought they only had one.
So Russia.
What's the name? You know?
I'm not sure what's the city, what's the port city that they're like off of.
In Syria?
Yes.
I don't remember, but Russia is surrounded by ice, and so they don't have a port that they can really actively use. The Black Sea, and this is one of the reasons they want to consolidate that coastline of Ukraine. The Black Sea is their access to the Mediterranean, which is their naval access to the world. And so that base that they have in Syria is their lifeline. Although I wonder if that can expand in the future, if they can make inroads with like Libya or something and establish a little bit more of a Mediterranean presence. Either way, Turkey could choke Russia navally at any point if they wanted.
And I think that's why it's interesting to note who's talking to who. And I think the foreign minister of Saudi, I'm gonna butcher his name, not butcher his name, miss up his name. His name is Faisal ibn Farhan.
Yeah.
I think the
Faisal
foreign
bin
minister,
Farhan.
the foreign minister talked to Arakchi just yesterday. I think last night and today.
He's the dude with the mustache, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, that guy.
He talked to him yesterday, which is again, we're talking about people who are not. We're talking about Vance meeting Arakchi, and then Faisal ibn
Farhan, I think.
Faisal bin Farhan meeting or talking to Arakchi. Saudi and Iran talking on the phone.
So you know what's crazy is that he met Ayatollah Khamenei when he went to Iran several months ago.
Really? I did not know this.
Yeah.
I did not know they had that kind of meeting.
That was crazy.
That is insane.
That was crazy. And at that time, this was when there were rumors that Saudi Arabia was going to pull something big in Yemen. I don't know if you remember, there were rumors that was this before the 12-day war? I might be getting my timeline mixed up. But there were rumors that Saudi was about to pull something big in Yemen. And Ansarullah was like gearing up. And one person I talked to said that it might have been a conversation where he was like, hey, Iran, you guys need to we're about to take Yemen. I didn't buy that, but I also wasn't sure what else they would be talking about.
It would seem dumb just because they had just descaled from there.
Yeah. But it is also weird that like a defense minister of a rival country is meeting with the supreme leader, not even the defense minister or the president of
Iran. The supreme leader doesn't take those type of meetings unless he knows what you're talking about is how it's gonna sound. And usually that's why even in this instance, when you have managed to get these heads of states into the same room, that is like once that has been co-signed by the states that my head of state is in there, a deal is gonna get done. No one can spend, no matter where it is, Trump or Arakchi or anyone, spend that much political capital and not get a deal done. If there was a restart of hostilities after this weekend when the 14-day ceasefire ended, that would have been, not only catastrophic for like international markets, it would be anomalous to common sense. It would be anomalous to any understanding of history and how empires decompress.
Yeah.
And it's easier to make that assessment of an empire than civilization. In empires, because empires come and go, civilizations stay. The empire is usually the phase of, these are the phases that go through. Right now we're seeing unwinding of the U.S. imperial hegemonic state.
Yeah.
And history rhymes. That's the best thing about it. Or at least in Tariq Ali's words, history echoes. It's interesting that the U.S. hegemony is dying the same place that U.S. hegemony started. The dollar and its cleaving away from the gold really started this order across the world, kickstarted this world order. Because we have to remember, in 45, people who came, Truman, even JFK, even Eisenhower, did not know the expanse of the organization they were leading. That we are at the helm of a country that is a state that is of world conquest proportions.
Yeah.
That realization, when it hits and they manage to do the cleave the dollar from gold, that happens all based on the talks that happened with Kissinger in Islamabad in 1971, 1972. And fast forward to 2026, and that's where the U.S. empire is going to say, hey, we're resigned to the Western Hemisphere, goodbye. It's interesting because Pakistan's it really brings into the spotlight Pakistan and the way, and that's why I think we really want to discuss this. We've been planning on it, me and Bilal. It really brings into spotlight Pakistan's history and adds the method to the madness. Because if you're especially for diaspora folks, it's such a big cope to be like, yeah, it's okay. We don't own any nationalism of any kind, and it's fine. Like whatever, we just white knight our way through life, and we're just saving people, bro. We're against the oppressor, bro. And it's like, yeah, you can be against the oppressor. What are you for, though? And the for is usually something like religious disposition minus the politic. Or a politic of eschatology. Politic of eschatology.
Wait, that's interesting. The politic of eschatology.
Singularly eschatology. Negate the material analysis, and even if you say,
got you.
The good will win no matter what. I don't care what happens.
Yeah.
That is not adequate.
In other words, you're either somebody who, for example, is religiously Muslim but politically atheist or agnostic, maybe.
Definitely. And
a model where they're religiously Muslim and politics doesn't exist until the end of time, in which scenario I'm just gonna jump up and I'll be we're ready to go.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, we've seen this. We talked about it at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime. And if
Yeah.
you are feeling, at the age of 35, if you were thinking one day you're going to turn the on button and now you're like a super saiyan, like, you're going to do this, that doesn't work. It wouldn't work out if you were working out, let alone fighting something. You can you can hit a weight that way. You can squat that way. You can do basic things that way. You can go through your profession that way. It really, I guess, going back, this dynamic and how, I mean, you talked about Belt and Road. It's completely intertwined. I think people noted that Modi had gone to Israel 36 hours before they bombed Iran. People failed to note that the UAE, I think Mohammed bin Nahyan, Mohammed bin Zayed. Mohammed bin Zayed.
Yeah.
Nahyan is a different family. I'm forgetting which one.
Nahyan is that the family name of MBZ?
I thought
Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan.
Mohammed bin Zayed, I believe, or one of the ministers of the UAE, visited India immediately after Modi got back, and that within 12 hours the bombing in Iran started. Within one day, Ayatollah Khamenei was assassinated. India has had a specific role in this, a very specific role in Iran and Iran's relationship with the rest of the world, because India became Iran's outlet for oil and the supply for commercial products after the fall of the USSR, when both are under sanctions. India, they cleared every single one of their oil transactions in rupees, actually. And that made the Khatami government very much beholden to it. So much so that the Khatami government sold out. Khatami or the Rafsanjani government sold out Kashmir in the UN in 95. This current situation has impeded India's IMEC to an extent. What they had been, I think, the India Middle East Europe corridor that they are building as a response to Belt and Road. It goes through Chabahar, Iran, the port that Iran gave them.
IMEC went to Chabahar through Chabahar.
That's one of the ways.
I thought it went directly from India to the UAE.
Multiple.
It had different.
It has same with the Belt and Road. And
I thought IMEC was one corridor. Okay.
Belt and Road is also multiple corridors.
Yeah,
like the Silk Road,
yeah.
and same way. It's based on the same thing.
Okay.
Same way. This has multiple nodes.
Yeah.
Chabahar interestingly got bombed by Israel, which is immediately. And I don't think it was lost on them who owned that port.
Yeah, I'm curious what's going to happen with that now. Is India going to keep the contract? Are they going to? Who's going to?
India's keeping the contract.
India's keeping the contract. Is the
UAE
UAE going to finance the reconstruction?
I think the UAE needs to finance their own reconstruction at this moment.
Well, Iran is asking for reparations.
Oh my god,
the whole house of cards.
It's all gone.
Why, God?
Great.
Why?
It's great. The biggest losers.
Why does this happen to the good?
Yeah. So the L really in this whole thing, the biggest L was this India, UAE, Israel axis.
India's at home. This has been the biggest. This has been a bigger hit in India than Operation Sindoor's failure.
Yeah, this is
the issue in India is that Modi is bigger than any other political force in the country, and he is solvent to 2035. That is, I think, in my opinion, I think that is more so not because of his own unpopularity, but because of the unpopularity of Rahul Gandhi and the Congress Party.
Yeah,
who are the milquetoast, like Al Gore types of India, and honestly, that kind of politician has fallen out of favor across the board. We don't need to dive into the history of it. Me and Bilal we have all talked about we're gonna do a deeper dive into the history of it, and the interconnectedness of it. In the current scheme of things, you're seeing a increasingly isolated India, and an increasingly isolated India is much more dangerous. When there was the past 20 years, when there was the inkling of acceptance by the West as a regional or a great power, that was one thing. Now that inkling is gone. I don't think Trump has left that. And I don't know why Trump, Modi owed him money or something or what, but Trump has gone out of his way to really embarrass this guy. It is interesting to note where they go from here. as far as foreign policy, because going the UAE route seems insolvent. Israel itself finds itself diplomatically isolated, and as far as the UK, I mean, I think they're ruining the fact in British media even today, the fact that they're sidelined completely. I don't think they even made Trump's peace board of peace.
India is not on the board of peace.
UK.
The UK.
The UK is not. And
Wasn't Keir Star or what's his name, Tony Blair, supposed to be on there though?
I mean,
Remember that?
I didn't assume. I didn't.
No,
know that.
remember Trump resurrected Tony Blair out of nowhere, and he was going to be the something. I think he was going to nominate him to be the governor of the board of peace, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right about
Right?
Yeah, I remember something about Tony Blair, and I was like,
And people were like, "What? Where? Like, this guy is still alive?"
this guy's still
Yeah. I don't know what happened to that. I don't know if he.
This motherfucker?
Yeah, I don't know if they ended up following through with that. Tony. Well, I don't care enough about Tony Blair.
I mean, these people have become increasingly irrelevant. I think now and I think to close off on some of what we sum up some of what we've been discussing internally on the pod amongst our friends is it's gonna be a very difficult process for the people here to come to terms with the fact that it's not only the fact there's a mental issue with the supremacy, the American what was it? Exceptionalism. That concept is in the dustbin of history already. The fact that your supply chains are going to get weaker, things are going to get more expensive. You don't make anything. There's no manufacturing. This country.
That's something that Trump is rightfully pissed off at.
This country did not produce a TV worth a dime 30 years ago. Even at that time, everything was made by Sony and Germany and Japan. And today, fast forward, we don't even make cars that are nice. I mean, I think Canada is importing a record number of Chinese vehicles.
Get out of here! No way.
I think Mike.
I mean, if you travel anywhere outside the U.S., especially outside the Western Hemisphere,
Huawei phones and whatnot are.
I mean, you used to go outside of the U.S. and you could recognize about 90% of the cars. Nowadays, you go to I went to Istanbul 2-3 years ago at this point. And when I was there, I didn't recognize 50% of the cars. 50% of the cars were just Chinese electric cars that you've never seen in America. It was kind of like.
And they're nice, bro. I've been looking into a new work truck. I've been looking into new cars here for the past month. I've sat in
a work truck. You thinking about getting a Cybertruck?
Hell no. Imagine pull up to a construction site in a Cybertruck.
You get murked.
Bro, you're
you get popped, bro.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
What is this?
Crazy.
But no, I've been sitting in so many vehicles and with trucks, all of them are American, right? Unless I'm looking at a Tundra or a Tacoma, these American trucks suck.
Yeah.
They look great on the outside. Maintenance is terrible. The inside feels cheap.
He has Apple CarPlay for you though.
On a tiny screen with no features. Now I'll go and sit in not even a fancy Chinese EV, a Tacoma. And I'm like, wow.
Tacomas are nice.
They're real nice.
You remember I had that Tacoma, that rental?
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Even a Tundra.
Yeah.
But now I look at these Chinese EVs online, bro, crazy.
And they're cheap too.
They're cheap.
Cheap money-wise.
Technologically.
Yeah.
And like he said, things are getting so much more expensive. We're not manufacturing anything in this country. At least not anything worth a crap, right? So what is the future of this nation if we post trade supremacy?
Techno-feudalism.
Yeah. Techno-feudalism.
Techno-feudalism.
And I mean, we'll dive into this. Feudalism, if you define it, we're not being hyperbolic, and I don't want to bore everyone by defining feudalism, but it's reconciling society using your contractual relationship with the land. And that kind of coherence is only built through the church. And if you want to, I'm not using that as conjecture, you can go back into history in feudal society. You can mark feudal society from the 5th century all the way to maybe the 16th. So about 1,000 years of feudal society. And I mean, feudal society preceded it, but I'm talking about the Dark Ages in Europe. And that really made the church become the thing that made it coherent, made the feudal system coherent. For the techno-feudalism in this country, the techno-feudalism you're already seeing in the military when they talked about religious stuff.
Yeah.
Israel's obviously making everything religious, and guess who they train? All the police big police departments. In this community, in these communities will require the church, the center, the mosque, the synagogue to reconcile or to make the system coherent again. It is not going to be coherent for a normal person to graduate out of college not knowing AI and be like, well, this is normal. No, it's not normal. Only thing that can make it normal for you, it's not normal. For us, it will be only normalized. Why? The church will co-sign it. The freaking mosque will co-sign it. The synagogue is going to co-sign it, and that is going to be the interesting dynamic in a secular society of how that plays a part, as opposed to in Europe at the time when it was going on. That was not a secular society; it's actually a hyper-religious society. I think you talked about this, and again, not to digress too much from the main point, the issue of liberalism and it excommunicating metaphysics from discourse. That really starts with the Reformation and the demonization of Catholicism and Catholics. You wanted to do away with any inkling of religiosity in the public
religious
space.
authority. Yeah, this is the beginning of the secularization process of you moving towards atheism, moving towards a place where the mundane is all that's real.
Yeah.
And then to a place where again then those fairy tale barbarians, Allah, 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 Allahu Akbar, Allah, praise be to Allah. I mean, he probably said that sarcastically, right? Trump in the tweet, praise be to Allah. He probably said that in like a kind of poking at them way. He was being a prick towards Iran, and so he was kind of you see that crash. You see that crash right now. You see that crash and burn. And in this new world order, you're going to have an ascendancy of the Islamic world. And, I mean, China has its own philosophy, this kind of Neo-Confucian thing with the socialist with Chinese characteristics model.
I mean, you're talking about, what's considered barbaric or civilized.
Yeah.
A civilized person is defined as someone whose actions are dictated by the mind.
Yeah.
And a barbarian is someone whose actions are dictated by the body. That's where we get the term civilization and citizens from. And I think right now, if you take a look into the world, you find who is letting the mind dictate the action, and who is letting the very carnal needs of humanity dictate their actions. You talked about it at the beginning, and that's what we can close off on. If you lead a life the way it's supposed to be led, then even death it's a monumental event for humanity, something that humanity grows from. Or you can be resigned to the fate, and then you're resigned to the reality that you defined as mundane. And there's no other word. There's no other word to say it.
It is what it is.
Yeah. And on that note, I mean, again, I must say, before we sign off, it is a new world order.
Yeah.
And congrats to anyone who didn't subscribe to the old one, because this is
your
a historic moment
on the train.
This, and again, I can't hold the excitement. I know. Last word. This meeting that's about to happen Thursday and going on maybe this whole weekend, wherever it happens, I think most likely Islamabad, is the only thing that really would historically be analogous is Yalta, when Stalin and the Axis, when the Allied powers met, Bretton Woods, and the Nixon Mao meeting. And it's interesting to note that both of the last meeting, Nixon Mao, and this one is happening in Pakistan. So this is a great kickoff point for when we dive into this subject in a deeper way, because this is, and I've been talking about this, the fault line of empire, the fault line of hegemony right now. While the theater of war has moved to the Mediterranean, the fault line remains South Asia, and India will be the force that dictates the world forward. We'll talk more about why this when we reconvene. But India is the big domino in the room now. I don't think they know it yet either, but that's going to be the point of emphasis moving forward for us, and I think the world.
We don't know how they are, dude.
They don't know how much either, and I think that's why what comes off for us is criticism of India. You guys have maybe said I might have criticized India too much. My heart resides with India and even the average Indian to an extent. That is, a lot of our roots come from there. I hope for prosperity, and I really believe that unlike a lot of the forces of Israel and America, the average Indian army officer, the average Indian soldier is fighting in their mind a defensive war whenever they go out to fight something. It is not an occupation force. It is not an imperial force, or at least that's not the disposition of the average soldier. Or this,
Pull
and-
support, sir. Pull
that's why I
support.
say
Pull support.
full support,
Full
sir.
support for you.
5,000-year-old civilization, sir.
It was
Signing
promised to me 5,000 years ago.
Yep.